Hello, and welcome to this episode of History Matters, the podcast of the Canadian Institute for Historical Education. My name is Alan Williams, and today our guest is Vickery Bowles, who for 43 years worked for Toronto Public Libraries, the last 10 of those years as City Librarian for the City of Toronto. I'm looking forward to this conversation, and there's so much to talk about, but let me ask you first, how did you become a librarian?
Well, I was a history major at university, and I spent a lot of time as a history major in libraries, of course. And I loved doing the research for history and the whole workings of libraries intrigued me. I came from a background where my grandfather and father were newspaper editors and publishers of a local newspaper in Richmond Hill, The Liberal. And it was a weekly newspaper. And, information and access to information was a really important feature of the local newspaper. And it was ingrained in us, the importance of that growing up. And I think that all connected for me to become a librarian.
And did you go right from university into libraries, or did you have...
Well, yes, I did my master's in library science. So to be a librarian, you need a master's degree. And so I did that at the University of Toronto. And I, as I graduated in 1982, I was hired as a librarian in Toronto. It was actually North York Public Library at that time.
Yes, it was before the amalgamation.
Before the amalgamation, yes.
Okay. And in 1982, it must have been right around the time that Robarts was being built on the University of Toronto campus. Was that part of your...
Well, Robarts was there. I graduated with my BA in 1980. It was there at the time. I used Robarts, but there was the Sigmund Samuel Library on the King's College Circle, which I loved. It's not called that anymore. And it was a fabulous library. I used that a lot, the Sigmund Samuel Library.
Well, I should have said at the beginning that October is Libraries Month in Canada.
Public Libraries Month, yes.
Yes, and Public Libraries Month in Ontario, or Public Libraries Week in Ontario.
Yes.
And so we are recording this on October 21st in the middle of Public Libraries Week. So
yes, that's
well, so let's talk about the Toronto Public Libraries. I understand that it is by some measures at least, the largest library system in North America. Can you elaborate on that a bit?
Yes. Well, Toronto has 100 branches and 2 bookmobiles, and we serve neighborhoods across the city. So no other library system in North America has 100 branches. And our collections include 10.5 million items, and it ranges from books and CDs and DVDs still, and ebooks, and in over 40 languages. So according to a public survey conducted in 2024, 81% of Torontonians use the library.
That's great.
So it's great. Yeah, and it's a very busy library system.
100 branches in every community, and one at Yonge and Bloor, known as the Toronto Reference Library, and that seems to me is kind of the flagship of the Toronto Public Library system.
It is the flagship. It is the only public research and reference library in all of Canada.
Now, what does that mean exactly? What is a reference and research library as opposed to a branch library?
Well, the vast majority of the collection, there's a small circulating collection called the Browsery at the reference library. But the vast majority of the collection, which is about 6 million items, is reference, and that includes all kinds of reference material. There's a special collections area of historical material. There's a performing arts collection. There's a cookbook collection. There's all sorts of different historical collections throughout that building that are preserved, and researchers use all of those various collections at the Toronto Reference Library to do research, and not just researchers, but students and other members of the public, genealogists, people who are just interested in finding out more, so that they have access to that information.
Well, it's such a busy place. Anytime I'm in there, there's just so many people. It's thriving.
It is thriving. Yes.
And it wasn't the current location hasn't been the only location. It started at another location around College in St. George, as I understand it, back in 1909.
That's right. Toronto has had a reference library since 1909, which is remarkable. It's wonderful. Long history of having a reference collection. And then in 1977, the current library was opened, and it's designed by the famous Raymond Maruyama, Canadian architect, and it's a beautiful building, 5 stories, all open when you walk in. There's a huge atrium, and Raymond Maruyama referred it as the cup of knowledge. He wanted everyone when you walked in to be able to see all the different floors of the library and have a sense of the vast resources that were available to them and the wealth of knowledge that was there and information.
Well, it is a beautiful place. When I go in, I look up and see all the people studying and researching, and I really love that library.
Yes.
Can you, why don't we talk a little bit about what's available there and what kinds of services and resources are available for researchers or for students, as you say?
Right. Well, I'll talk a little bit about the special collections area, because that's an important research area of the Toronto Reference Library. And it is one of the world's largest collections of Canadian history. And it has over 1 million items in that collection. And it's the Marilyn and Charles Bailey special collections. And within that, it's the Baldwin collection. And that is the largest research collection on Canadian history. It's the Baldwin collection itself with 1 million items. And there are a number of different collections within the Baldwin collection that are very important. One is the Canadian Documentary Art Collection. And it's a collection that focuses on images that have been collected from 1793 to the present time. And it covers other parts of Canada, but it also includes, 1 million photos and paintings, about 15,000 paintings, and over 18,000 postcards. So that's part of the documentary art collection. Also part of that collection is the Toronto Star Photographic Archive, which was donated to us by the Toronto Star, and it covers over 1 million local, national, and international press photos from 1900 to 1999. It's a hugely valuable collection, and we're very grateful to the Toronto Star for that donation.
And is that, sorry to interrupt you, but is that collection available for, like, if someone was researching a particular topic and there was a photo from the Toronto Star, is that publicly available?
It's all available. Yep. All of this is available to the public. Yep. And you go to the special collections, Marilyn and Charles Bailey Special Collections department on the 5th floor of the Toronto Reference Library, and there are a professional staff who help you access those resources that you need, and maybe find you more of what you need.
Sure, more that you didn't know you needed.
Yeah, they didn't know what you needed. Also, there's the John Ross Robertson collection, and this is a collection of 4,000 paintings and other types of pictures that depict different aspects of Canada, scenes, people, and events up until 1918. And it was donated to the library in 1912, and it established TPL as a major archive for historical Canadian imagery. So it's a very important collection within the Canadian documentary art collection. The other part of that we have in the on the 5th floor in our special collections area is the Arthur Conan Doyle collection, which is a collection. It's one of the world's leading collections that's devoted to the author of
Sherlock Holmes.
And there's a room there set up that looks like it might have been used by Sherlock Holmes or Arthur Conan Doyle himself. There's also the Chinese Canadian Archive, which is one of the newest collections that have been added to the special collections area. And that is where we are collecting primary materials, historical materials, and we are collecting them from Torontonians of Chinese descent who have historical material about the contributions of the Chinese people to Toronto and the history of Toronto. We have lots of books about the history of Toronto, but there are some lost stories and aspects of the history of Toronto. And certainly the Chinese Canadian Archive is trying to recapture the the contributions of Chinese Canadians to Toronto's development and history.
And if someone had resources that they thought might be worthwhile for the library to maintain, do you accept donations still? And do you have a process for deciding what's something
Yes.
you could donate?
Yeah, absolutely. We do. We do get donations from time to time, and we do have a process for assessing them. We don't accept all donations. It has to be within the scope of the library's collection plan for our special collections and for the library itself. So, yes, absolutely. Our staff will certainly welcome to talk to anyone about anything they want to donate and go through an assessment process of the donation itself.
Okay. And I guess we traditionally think of libraries as books, but there's so much more in the digital age. I imagine most of the students who are high school students and university students that are in the library these days are not so much looking at the books as looking at digital resources. So do you want to talk about the difference and what is available digitally?
Yes, well, certainly we have electronic resources and they're available through our website, tpl.ca. And there's a whole range of digitized materials. Some of them are collections that we subscribe to, and these are electronic materials that people use to do research. And traditionally you would have like periodical indexes and all those kinds of things. Well, all that's digitized. It's all online, and you don't have to come into the library to access those collections. And they also have full content. You're not just getting indexes; you're getting the full content as well. And then we also digitize our historical collections. We have a large digitized collection. We have a digitized staff who did actually digitize the materials. And I'm just looking up here. I think I've got the actual number. We have 160,000 full items in the digitized historical collection, a digital archive. And so that's a huge collection that it not only preserves historical rare content, but it also makes it available to you just through a few clicks on your computer. And so that's a really important part of the collection as well.
And all you need is a library card to access that.
All you need is a library card. The other part of the digitized collection, of course, are circulating ebooks and e-audiobooks. And I'll tell you, that's a huge, very, very popular part of the Toronto Public Library's digitized collections.
Wonderful. All right. Well, you mentioned you have a policy on how to decide what kind of donations you accept. Let's talk about acquisitions more generally. How do you decide what's should be in the library? And I don't know how many, you've got 100 branches. Is a certain book that's popular going to be in every single branch, or how does that work?
We have a service delivery model that's based on tiers of service. So it doesn't make sense to buy everything for every branch. They're all different sizes. We have, the Toronto Reference Library, which is over 500,000 square feet. And we have other libraries, very small neighborhood branches that are, a few thousand square feet. So what we do is we have this service delivery model that offers tiers of service. And the first tier of service are our neighborhood branches. There are 87 of those. There are 17 district libraries. That's a higher tier, the second tier of library service. And those are larger collections. And all of the neighborhood branches are clustered underneath the district libraries. Then we have the research and reference libraries. And there's the Toronto Reference Library. And I've just talked about, there's also the North York Central Library. Mm-hmm. It also has a large reference collection, but it has a very large and the largest circulating collection as well. And that collects more than the district libraries collect. And then we also have two other special collections I should have mentioned. There's the Merrill collection of science fiction and fantasy. And there is the Osborne collection of early childhood literature, children's literature. Both of those are located at the Lillian H. Smith branch. So, but in any case, and then there's a fourth tier, which is our digitized collections, which is at the fourth tier. So so we have different tiers of service, and we have collection plans based on those tiers of service.
And am I right that a book that maybe is less or a resource that's not used as much anymore might be taken off a a local tier branch, but you would still be able to access it at the reference library.
Absolutely. Yes, that's very true. Yes, that's right.
But so do you ever discard things? I mean, are there...
Yes. Well, you have to. All libraries have withdrawals that they have to attend to, and that's part of our material selection policy. We have a material selection policy, and within that, there is an explanation of how the criteria we use for withdrawing materials from the collection. There's also criteria for for how we select materials for collections, and it also covers how we deal with challenges to our collection when people want things removed from our collections.
Well, let's talk about that. That's an interesting subject, and there must be. I'm sure there's a policy on it, but there must be a sense that you want to make things available to people, and so I assume you would resist the pressure to have some controversial book removed.
Absolutely, we do. We do. We do not censor. Public libraries do not censor books. Core public library value is intellectual freedom, and so that's an important value that we uphold, and it's also, of course, a value that is protected in the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms as well. So we take every challenge very seriously, and we have a committee of librarians who review the challenge and take it from there.
And is there an anecdote or a story about, say, a particular book that you had a conversation about and you made a decision one way or the other that it should be available or kept available, or in fact, perhaps one that you decided should be removed?
Well, one that has kind of a perennial challenge that comes up every few years is Mein Kampf.
Right.
And of course, we do not remove that. And many libraries get the same challenge. We do not remove that from our collection because it's an important historical document that explains really the rise of National Socialism in Germany and that resulted in the Second World War. So it's not something we would ever remove from our collections. It's an important historical document that people need to have access to and to be able to read if they want to.
Okay. And I was interested as well in, is there a relationship between the public libraries and the university libraries?
Yeah,
way to sort of exchange material or acquire from a university if someone needed a document that from any other library, I guess, that they maybe isn't available at Toronto.
No, we do. We have a relationship, certainly with the university libraries, in terms of collaborating and talking about things, and occasionally we will co-sponsor programs together or whatever, or even exhibits. But we don't transfer library materials between our collections. Other than through interlibrary loan, we do interlibrary loans to the public that will come from our collections, and sometimes the universities do the same. But no, we don't transfer materials between collections.
Okay, and if someone came into a branch or to the reference library and they had a topic that they wanted to research, what's the if they were new to the system, what's the process, or how would you introduce them to the resources that they could access at the reference library, say?
Well, people, if they come in and they can get a library card, and if you live, work, or go to school in Toronto, and certainly as part of that process, we provide people with an orientation package, information about the library and the resources that we have. And if someone have a particular interest, we will direct them to the area of the library where we have our expert staff who can provide them with more detail about what they're looking for. But when you join the library, you get a kind of a high level overview of what's available and how to access those materials.
Okay. Well, in this library month and library week, is there Is there anything else you would like to add about libraries before we get to our two of our closing questions?
Well, one of the things I want to add is this past Sunday, October 19th, all 100 branches of the Toronto Public Library were open on Sunday for the very first time.
Oh, wow.
That is a huge milestone. The library board has had an open hours plan since 2006, and with the support of Mayor Olivia Chow and City Council and the library board and all of the staff who organize all of the hiring and the implementation of the open hours plan, it was a wonderful milestone to have Toronto Public Library open at 100 branches on Sunday for the very first time, and it's a very unique in the North American environment. Some libraries are not open on Sundays at all, and others will have just a few branches open on Sundays. But in Toronto, it's all 100.
Is that going forward, or is that just a special thing?
Oh no, that's going forward.
That's wonderful. I didn't know that, and so many times I've wanted to go to a branch on a Sunday and it's not open, other than the reference library.
Yes, well, 1 till 5 or 12 to 5. 12 to 5. Sorry, 12 to 5. That is the hours for the libraries. All 100 branches on Sundays.
Oh, that's great. All right. Well, this has been a very interesting conversation, Vickery, and I'd like to close with our two usual questions. And the first one is, and I've gotten your permission to ask this.
Yes.
What was it that first got you interested in history generally, or in Canadian history?
Well, I talked a little bit about my family history and my parents, and both my mother and father and my grandparents, and their interest in local history and politics and the importance of access to information and resources. And certainly, we were always talking about, history and at the dinner table, or just in conversation, it would come up. And then, of course, I started studying. I loved it in high school, history. And I had some wonderful history teachers in high school. And when I went to university, I knew I wanted to study history, and I studied Canadian history, but I also started British and European history. And what I loved about studying British history was understanding the roots of the evolution of the parliamentary democracy that we have here in Canada today, and its roots in Great Britain. So I believe very passionately in the importance of democracy and of democratic values and freedoms, and the role of the public library in protecting those democratic values and freedoms. I think that many people do not think of the library as a democratic institution, but it is, and it was from the very beginning. When it opened in Toronto in 1884, that's when the Toronto Public Library was first opened. The Free Public Library Act in Ontario was 1882. That was all about providing access to everyone, and it's an important part of a democracy that people have access to information and resources freely, without censorship, without people interfering with what information is available to everyone. And people can pick and choose what information they want for themselves, but they can't do that for other people. And that's an important part of public library service. And it's really a passion for me to talk about the library's role. In fact, the Toronto Reference Library is in the process of establishing a Center for Democracy at the Reference Library, which will be on the second floor of the Reference Library. And it is to be a bit of a beacon, a light that shines on and puts light on the public library as an important role in protecting democratic values and freedoms. So that's really important to me.
That is outstanding. I'm so glad to hear that. I should circle back to one thing that you mentioned and I didn't pick up on, but it's in the context of Canadian democracy. And you said that I think your grandfather and your father were involved with publishing the Richmond Hill Liberal. Is that right?
Yes, the newspaper. Yes,
the newspaper. And we didn't really talk about the newspapers that are available at the Reference Library. Do you want to mention a bit about? There's so many Ontario and Canadian newspapers that are available, either hard copy or a microfilm or online.
Yes, no, we have a huge collection. It's an important part of the historical collection that we have is the newspaper collection. People can access, a lot of it is digitized, which is really important. Then we also have microfilmed, some on microfilm as well. And then we have originals as well. So it's a huge collection of great historical importance, and it's a treasure trove of information for researchers as well.
Absolutely. I'm just curious. I mean, the reference library is a big building, but there must be another place where you store some of this stuff that it can't all fit in that building.
It's all
really.
Yeah. There's no offsite storage. No. And that has been an important principle of the Toronto Reference Library as well. We want to make sure that everything that people want is accessible now. That if you want it, someone may have to retrieve it for you. Quite likely they will. I mean, there are open shelves that people can access as well. But more of the historical documents will all have to be retrieved. We want to make sure that people have access to that material and they can retrieve it whenever they need it and not have to wait a day or two for someone to go to some offsite storage place to go get it. And I think that's an important feature of the public library service as well, is we serve and meet people's needs when they need it and as they need it.
Wonderful. All right. Well, it's time for our final question. And I would like to ask you, what book would you recommend for our listeners on any subject at all?
Well, a book I loved, it's not a current book. It was published in 2016 by Charlotte Gray. It was a Charlotte Gray's book. And I don't know if you know it. It's called The Promise of Canada. And it covers about 150 years of Canadian history, and it with 9 portraits of different Canadian influencers. She calls them influencers, and who have been very influential in the development and evolution of Canada. People like Georges Etienne Cartier, Emily Carr, Elijah Harper, Margaret Atwood, and these are all some of the portraits that she has done little biographies of and talked about their beliefs and how they've influenced the development of Canada and important to the Canadian historical understanding. So it's a very readable book, and I found each portrait fascinating. And then she also gets into discussing other Canadians as well in relation to these other 9 key people that she's written about. So The Promise of Canada, I think, is a really lovely book to read that gives you an interesting perspective on Canada, and it's kind of a different perspective on Canada.
So The Promise of Canada by Charlotte Gray from 2016.
2016. And you can get it at your local Toronto Public Library.
And Charlotte Gray is a great popular historian in Canada, and she's going to be a guest on the podcast in November. So.
Oh, perfect.
Yes.
That's great. I didn't know that. I'll have to listen in.
Wonderful. All right. Well, my guest today has been Vickery Bowles, recently retired as the City Librarian in the City of Toronto for Toronto Public Libraries. Vickery, it was a very enjoyable conversation, and thank you very much for being with us today.
Thank you so much, Alan. That was my pleasure.
If you like what you heard today, subscribe to History Matters on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or YouTube. You can reach me or the members of the Canadian Institute for Historical Education by email at info@cihe.ca.